So, have you ever stopped to wonder what really shapes our deepest connections? You know, why we feel so safe and comfortable with some people, but maybe anxious or distant with others? Well, today we're diving into something called attachment theory, which is basically the psychological blueprint for how we relate to pretty much everyone in our lives. All right, let's jump right in with a quick quiz to get us started. First question, true or false? When a baby cries because a parent has left the room, it's a sign that they're too attached. Go ahead, lock in your answer. And what about this one? True or false? The absolute best sign of a secure, healthy bond is a baby getting really upset when their caregiver leaves. Now, that sounds similar to the first one, right? But there's a subtle twist. We're going to find out the real science behind both of these by the end. To really unpack those questions, we have to start at the very beginning. We need to understand the core concept that's at the heart of all this, that foundational bond that literally shapes us from day one. So what exactly is attachment anyway? Well, it's way more than just liking someone. The official definition is a strong, lasting, affectionate bond that a baby forms with a key person in their life, someone who really gets them and responds to their needs. It's this incredibly powerful emotional connection. The guy who really pioneered all this, John Bowlby, he put it this way back in 1951. He said that an infant needs a warm, intimate, and continuous relationship with their primary caregiver. And honestly, this idea was a game changer. It put the focus squarely on the quality of that emotional bond as being absolutely essential for a child's development. Okay, so it's this really powerful bond, but how on earth do you measure something like that? I mean, it sounds so abstract. Well, let's look at how researchers figured out how to turn this idea into something they could actually observe and study. So, one of Bowlby's colleagues, a brilliant researcher named Mary Ainsworth, she took on that very question. How do we know this is real? And her big idea was that the key was to watch how a child uses their caregiver as a secure base. Basically, does the kid feel safe enough with that person that they're willing to go out and explore the world, knowing they have a safe harbor to come back to? And to test this, she created this genius experiment called the strange situation. You can think of it like a little three-act play. Act 1, exploration. The child is in a room with their caregiver and can explore. Act 2, separation. The caregiver leaves for a few moments. And Act 3, the reunion. The caregiver comes back. And believe me, the way a child reacts in each of these stages tells you almost everything you need to know. What's so fascinating is what Ainsworth discovered. She saw these really clear patterns, or styles, of attachment. A child with a secure attachment, they feel confident to explore, and when their caregiver returns, they're easily comforted. Then there's insecure/avoidant. That child might act like they don't care at all, almost ignoring the caregiver when they leave or come back. And finally, insecure/resistant. This child is often really clingy, gets super distressed when the caregiver leaves, and then is really hard to soothe, even when they're back. So these are patterns we can see in babies. But why does any of this matter later on? Well, the reason it's so critical is that this very first bond we form becomes a kind of blueprint for the rest of our lives. And that's the absolute key to all of this. That first attachment relationship creates what Bowlby called an internal working model. Just think of it exactly like a blueprint for a house. It's the set of expectations and beliefs we carry around with us about how relationships are supposed to work. And it's all based on that very first one. So, to put it a little more formally, this model is our internal map. It's our mental idea of ourselves, of other people, and of relationships in general. And this map quietly guides how we act in our friendships, our romantic partnerships, even how we parent our own kids for our entire lives. This blueprint is so powerful, but it raises a really serious question. What happens when that early foundation, the very thing our relationship world is built on, gets shaken up or even shattered by trauma? And that brings us to a single stark number: 10. That number 10 stands for the list of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. These are 10 specific types of traumatic events that can happen before you're 18. They range from things like abuse and neglect to serious problems within the family. And it makes sense, right? When a child's world feels unsafe or unpredictable, it's incredibly hard to form that consistent, trusting bond you need for a secure attachment, which can often lead to one of the insecure styles instead. Now, I know this can all sound a little bit grim, maybe even deterministic, like if our early blueprint is shaky, are we just stuck with it forever? That leads us to maybe the most important question of all. Can we actually change our style? Let's just put it out there, plain and simple. If a child develops an insecure attachment, is that blueprint set in stone for the rest of their life? And the answer, thankfully, is a huge, resounding false.
This is such good news, and it really speaks to how amazing our brains are. The research is totally clear on this. Our attachment style is not a life sentence. As we go through life, have new experiences, and form new, healthy relationships, our internal working models, those blueprints, can actually be updated. They can be revised.
So let's circle all the way back to that quiz from the beginning. The common myth is that a baby crying when a parent leaves is some sort of bad sign. But the science shows us that crying is a perfectly normal response. The real sign of a secure attachment isn't what happens when the parent leaves. It's all about how easily the baby is soothed and reconnects when the parent comes back. That reunion is everything. Okay, so let's wrap all this up. What are the big things to take away? First, attachment is that foundational bond that creates our internal working model. Second, getting a secure start is huge. It helps build self-esteem and social skills down the road. Third, and this is so important, these styles are just patterns. They are not permanent, stuck on you for life labels. And finally, the most hopeful point of all, our blueprints can be rewritten. We can update them throughout our lives. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Knowing all this, just take a second to reflect on your own life. How has your own internal working model, your personal blueprint, shaped the way you connect with the important people in your world today?